Racism. Racism is a tool to tear the people apart. Xenophobia is a tool to tear the people apart. Don't be angry at the boss that chose to hire an immigrant over an American, screwing both of them. Be angry at the powerless immigrant. Classism is a tool to tear the people apart. Homophobia and sexism, these are all tools to tear the people apart. Economic ignorance is a tool to tear the people apart. For our entire lives, we have been taught the perfect storm of misinformation to get everybody fighting with everybody. There is nothing wrong with disagreeing on policy. That is a good thing. But there is a big problem when we disagree on the reality of how our economy actually functions. Examples of how we fight. Progressives and Democrats say, please raise my taxes because I want my taxes to go to health care. Don't raise my taxes for war, but I want to give everybody health care. Please raise my taxes. I'm a nice person. It's not just for me. And that triggers a huge population of people that are genuinely terrified of raised taxes. They are convinced that it will bankrupt themselves, their families, their businesses, and the whole country. So they stand against our big programs because they are convinced that it will raise our taxes, and most progressives and Democrats agree that it will raise our taxes. And it won't. So this makes no sense, yet we fight over it. Take money from the rich. Bernie Sanders still says, although he is doing better, Bernie Sanders still says we must tax the rich so they pay their fair share in taxes, so we can have infrastructure. Which triggers a huge population of people that say, how dare you penalize success? Who do you think creates the jobs anyway? Take money from the military. We must reduce the military. Just imagine what we could use that money for. And that triggers another population of people to say, how dare you jeopardize our national security, and how dare you jeopardize our troops? And none of this makes economic sense, because we don't need to take money from the powerful. We don't need to raise taxes necessarily for these big programs. Most progressives, the Young Turks, for example, Bernie Sanders, what they do so well is they clearly articulate what is wrong. We don't have health care, and this is why that's so wrong. We don't have free education, and this is why that is so wrong. And on the other side, they clearly articulate how the world could be better if we had health care, and this is why, if we had education, and this is why. They help us envision the world that could and should be. But the one thing that most progressives and most Americans, no, sorry, I'm mixing things up. The one thing that most progressives get wrong is when we actually try to get these programs, the one critical step at the very end to actually make these things happen. Why don't we actually have any of these programs that we need to survive? These things that we have been talking about and preaching about for decades. The answer is that we spend most of our time arguing and debating over and analyzing these economically inaccurate things as if they are more important than the genuine benefits that these programs will provide to us, like survival. We incorrectly believe that these economically inaccurate things are a prerequisite to getting what we need. So our progressive leaders and the media, along with most progressives and most Americans, sabotage our actually getting these critical programs that we need to survive. So when we march onto Congress and demand single-payer health care, we demand it tomorrow. Our Congress member turns to us and says, oh, I wish I could give it to you. There is nothing more in the world that I want to do than give it to you. I know how much you want it and need it, how much it will alleviate your suffering, but I can't. I can't give it to you because of the debt and the deficit and fiscally responsible. How are you going to pay for it? And almost all of us fall for this pay-for trap, and it is a trap and a trick. Our federal politicians ask us, how are you going to pay for it? And most of us go back to the drawing table and try and figure it out. We try, and we spend most of our time trying to figure it out, coming up with better numbers. And every time we do this, it just makes the people fight more. The truth is, they just don't want to give it to us because they're paid to not give it to us. They hide behind these economically inaccurate things to pretend that it's somehow out of their control. Here is the technical answer to how are you going to pay for it. The answer is we are a fiat currency. If we have the real resources to do it, then you could create the money to do it if you wanted. That's the technical answer. But this is the answer that I believe should be given to the how are you going to pay for it question. We will pay for it by getting you out of office and replacing you with someone who will never ask that question again. They will do whatever it takes to just make it happen. And until that day, 100% of our energy will be spent making your life a living hell until you either get out of office or you give it to us. Why? So why don't we have single-payer health care? Because it has nothing to do with health care. First, they want to profit off of us. They want to profit off of our sickness and our suffering and our death. But that's not the biggest thing. What's bigger than that is that it chains us to our jobs. And therefore, we can't stand up to our bosses because if we dared try, we risk health care for our whole family. But that's not the biggest thing. In my opinion, the biggest reason that we don't have single-payer health care is that it chains us to our jobs and makes it unaffordable to leave our job and run for office. Because if we did that, then we could get our corrupt politicians out of office and create a government that actually cares about the people, more than it cares about money and power and donations. That's why we don't have health care and free college and forgiven student debt and a federal job guarantee. Power. Power is relative. The only way that the powerful can stay powerful is to actively keep the powerless powerless. We don't need to fight the powerful. We just need to stop fighting ourselves. We don't need to take money from the powerful. We don't need to take power from the powerful. We just need to empower ourselves. There is nothing wrong with disagreeing on policy. That's a good thing. There is a big problem, however, in disagreeing on the reality of how our economy actually functions. Thank you. So I'm going to leave this up. If you have some questions, I don't know how much time. You'll stop me when it's too long. But I'm not talking about this, but I put this at the beginning and at the end, and I hope that you can see how critically this relates to the situation.